Hey, do you want to go to the grocery store with me
And podcast at the same time?
and record a podcast at the same time? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And as I am the soldier and poet. Yes, tell this to all the world.
Hello and welcome to the Pod Sounds Cool podcast, the podcast that aims to help you improve your podcast and gets into the lifestyle and struggles of podcasters. This is your host, Veronica, and here with me is my sidekick,
Studio Steve. How's it going, everyone?
So today we are at a grocery store.
Yes, we're trying something totally different. And, over the last year, we've all been cooped up and completely stuck in our space. And although that's been really cool for podcasters, because maybe for a lot of us, not much changed, I think that there's this universal need and desire to get out. And
we're cabin fever.
Yeah, cabin fever. And even there's always podcast burnout, always people that are getting bored with their podcasts. So we are putting ourselves through the test. We're always the guinea pigs for our podskis. And we decided today to do kind of a coffee shop podcast.
Yes.
But because we're not really allowed to loiter in coffee shops yet, we came to our local grocery store. And I think technically we shouldn't be loitering here because there was a cafe closed sign. We just ignored that.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, and you are so right. It's been so difficult to be trapped in our houses, and also we're humans and we experience. We got a little bored with our content, so we're thinking about just spicing things up a little bit and start recording in random places.
Yeah.
And through the magic of post-production, we'll see how that looks and how that sounds.
Yeah. So we're really excited about this episode, and it's not just going to be us talking about the bad things about, quarantining and the pandemic and everything. It's also going to be about podcast production tips when you want to podcast in environments outside the comfort of your podcast studio.
Yes.
So what we're going to get into this episode is we're going to talk about the pre-production before you go out on the town, whether it's a coffee shop or a restaurant, the gear you're going to need. Then we're going to talk about actually the best practices while you're recording, and we'll kind of banter a little bit, I'm sure, but we'll also finish up the episode talking about the post-production or different ideas you can utilize in the editing.
Let's do it.
Okay, so do you want to kind of explain to the listeners where we're at?
Yes. So as we were saying, we are here at a local grocery store, and there's an area that used to be open for people to grab things, like quick things to come in and have lunch. And there are a few tables here, but the area was closed, and we're kind of ignore the signs, and we're here. So we may be kicked out at any time. So
yeah,
hopefully we get to record this whole podcast episode without getting kicked out.
Yep.
There's a lot of music, and there was country music playing before, and that was kind of pop music.
Pop music, yeah, but there's a lot of music playing in the background. You can hear the distant sound of shoppers.
Yes.
So this is a really cool experiment to do to see what if we get out into some places and capture the environment inside of our podcast episode. It also brings us completely out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
So we're pretty uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, we are. It's been we're kind of shy.
Yeah, I didn't even realize
a little bit and a little passive aggressive. We don't like to get in trouble, so we're going to get in trouble with the law.
So let's talk about the gear that we're using since you're listening to us and you are wondering what gear we're using right now. What we're using is an H4n Zoom recorder, and Zoom recorders are really popular for podcasters. Maybe you already have one, and if you do, it's perfect for that. You also see these Zoom recorders used a lot on film sets. It's great for just being on the go, and it gets really good quality audio recordings. The one we're using allows you to get 4 channels at once. And it has a microphone on top of it. And the 2 microphones, it's a stereo microphone, will actually capture the environment. So these you can actually just walk around and kind of capture the sound of the environment you're in too. So we could even walk through the aisles of the grocery store and get the sound of the real shoppers, and then record the intro or something to this episode later if we wanted to. Also,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? And then also, we have 2 classic podcast microphones we're using. Veronica has the ATR 2100, the Audio Technica, and I have the Samson Q2U, The only difference is these aren't USB microphones in this case. We're bypassing the USB, and we have XLR cables plugged into them going into the Zoom recorder. So that's just really cool that many people already have these Samson Q2Us or the Audio-Technica microphones. And so it's really cool that you can actually use those in other applications other than a USB microphone.
Yeah. I love this setup. I love the ability that it has to, you can go anywhere and record a podcast episode with your guest or your co-host.
You can meet people places. Maybe there's somebody you always wanted to interview, and rather than get on a remote situation, in one of the awesome remote solutions, why not say, hey, you want to meet at a Denny's and do a podcast episode? And then the other thing we're doing that you obviously can't see because you're listening is we're filming ourselves too. We have a GoPro camera on us filming this, so it will be B-roll for a YouTube video. And we're also going to make a YouTube video about recording a podcast at a grocery store. So
we like to repurpose.
Yes, repurposing. It's all about the repurposing, right? Just to get ready for this, we just packed all this up nicely and kind of planned what we were going to do.
Well, it wasn't nicely, and that's something that I would recommend is to organize your gear.
Yes, okay.
Because it's been kind of a nightmare.
Here we go.
No, it has to happen at some point.
It's going to. I have an idea.
He starts running up and down the stairs, looking for cables, looking for different things, and then he asks me, like, I do that, like I know where all that stuff is at, and we're in the middle of selling our home too.
Yeah. I get really
is out
moody.
of place.
I get grumpy and I get sweaty. I'm a real asshole,
And it takes forever.
It does. It takes a long time.
But if you have your gear organized and labeled, then it's a matter of you just grabbing the things that you need.
I think the biggest problem is the chargers and the little doodads, the little connectors of things, because they just get mixed into a big basket of cables and stuff. So
I can see that.
Yeah, getting things organized, understanding like what shots you're going to get, and then also we have a little outline right now where we're trying to stay on point with a few different things we want to cover in this episode. That can help a lot too. And then if you are going to do anything like B-roll, have that in mind beforehand too. Like, hey, we're going to be at a Denny's, so let's kind of sneak around the Denny's with the Zoom recorder and get the sound of the plates clinking and all that to add even more of a nice, fun environmental thing.
Yeah, now this is a little disclaimer, I think, or something that you should watch out for is that you should ask for permission. Steven says that
we disagree on this.
He disagrees, but by my law background,
I think that
it's better for you.
I think it's easier to get forgiveness than permission.
No, I didn't say that. In my opinion, you should always request permission to record.
Always. Yes, definitely. But
in this case,
I just think if you were to play this scenario out, that we would ask, they'd say, no, I'm sorry, it's closed right now. But now we're just keeping eye contact. All the people who've passed us, we just, look like we know what we're doing.
And also make sure that if you're taking video that you're not disclosing the place that you're at. Like right now, you can tell, we just said that we are at a local grocery store. We didn't mention
you don't know where we're at.
The place where we are at.
Sometimes you can get into some issues with that as well.
Yes, you should avoid that.
Yeah,
because that's not the reason why you're there.
But it's just a really fun and creative thing to kind of, get out of your podcast studio and try something new. Might be really fun for your listeners too, because they get to know us a little bit more and they hear more of our insecurities and more of our humanity when we're in a different place.
Yeah, because you're placed at a different scenario, because we get too comfortable in our studios, in our homes. So, but when we're taken out of that scenario and put in a completely different environment, it's like, how are you going to react? How are you going to react if somebody approaches us right now, asks us to leave?
So then the one other thing I want to talk about with best practices, because we're recording. One thing we're doing is we're holding our microphones and we're trying to hold them pretty still to limit handling noise.
Oh, I was supposed to do that?
Yeah, but you have been doing it naturally. You're a natural.
Okay.
And then we have little poofers, I like to call them poofies, but they're wind protectors, wind screens usually, but they're the little foam pieces that go over these handheld microphones. That will help with the plosives or the heavy P sounds from our mouth. That also enables us to put the microphones really close to our lips. Because when you're in an environment where there's music playing and there's crowds and there's clinking of plates, we still want to focus on clarity and articulation and being able to hear what we're saying. So in order to do that, we need to be really close to the microphone.
Yeah.
Proximity is the one thing that's really going to make a difference. So whatever, if you're going to be using your phone, you can also do what Veronica and I are doing, using 2 phones if you wanted to, and just have the phones really close. The other thing we could have done up here, both of us, is just hold our phones up like we're talking on a phone.
Like we're having a conversation.
Yeah, like we're having a conversation on your phone. Yeah.
Nobody's going to know.
Nobody's going to know.
Too much TikTok.
Way too much TikTok. So that's good. I think now we can
They're
just...
going to know.
We can... This is an inside joke, if you haven't seen that TikTok.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know how viral that TikTok with the marble tables was anyway. Probably not very viral.
Which one?
Isn't it the one where she's like, nobody will know, and she's redoing a marble countertop?
Yeah, that's being used.
Oh,
yeah. In so many scenarios.
It has been used?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then other people who maybe are familiar with TikTok, unlike me, would know that then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So yeah.
They will understand.
So I don't know if do you think we should do anything fancy with new intros? I don't think we're going to record a separate intro or bring people into the story of this episode, but that would be something cool. And also a good way to move on to number 3 of this episode, and that is editing and post-production stuff. One thing I immediately think of is like those NPR shows, and how, you know, a lot of times you'll hear the environment, you'll hear the crowd, you'll hear an angry mob, you'll hear, well, we could just hear the grocery store. And anybody who's ever been in a grocery store will be like, oh, we're in a grocery store. You just start the episode that way, and that could be the teaser. And then, you know, maybe we could even give Daniela, who's our awesome podcast editor, if I think we've already introduced you guys to her before, but she's doing a killer job. We could give her some B-roll audio of the grocery store and see if she wants to use it or not. That would be, so you hear the environment, and then maybe we would come in with a intro that we record separately in the studio. So you go back to the podcast studio, you hear what you got in the field. Hopefully it's not all garbage. And then you could actually give it more context. Maybe there was things that Veronica and I forgot to talk about, you know, and you can give the interview or the episode more context, and you can set up the story a little bit more. And these are just fun ways that you can start experimenting with the layout and how you're going to puzzle piece your podcast episodes together. So that's something you can do in the editing. And then... Yeah,
it's like sound storytelling.
Yeah, storytelling with sound. And, you know, you could just keep doing your same podcast, because here we are, but we've told more story. We've talked about our how we're afraid and how people are passing us, and we've talked about our grocery store and our normal routines, and we've told a little bit more story, but we're still delivering the same content about different ways you can podcast and trying to get people's creative juices flowing with that. So
the creative juices.
I like creative juices. And then the other thing we could have done, which we didn't do, we just have the Zoom recorder laying on the table right now, but we could have had it propped up on something, maybe even up towards these speakers where the music is.
Oh, so there's 2 microphones. I mean, you guys can't see it, but
there's
two microphones, and they're like pointing.
They point in opposite directions.
Oh, in opposite directions, and they can catch a little bit of the room sound and the music
or ambience.
And ambience, yeah.
The ambience. And it's really cool, too, because if you unplug these microphones from the Zoom recorder, then...
Maybe we'll be able to do that, because we need to do some grocery shopping.
Oh, yeah, so while we're grocery shopping, we'll do that. I was also thinking about trying to strap the GoPro to my head. We'll see how that works. So if you want to see...
They're going to know.
If you want to see the debacles, the behind the scenes of how this works, and you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, we'll be posting this video sometime around the same time, maybe a little later than the podcast episode comes out, probably around the same time though. So go check out our YouTube channel for that. And that's about it for this episode.
Yes. Also, I want to say, if you are new to podcasting, if this is like, you don't know what we're talking about, if this is really, really new for you, we have a training that we would like to invite you to. And you can find the registration page at podcastingsmart.com.
Yeah, and definitely come check that out. It's a really cool training, and we'll get you up to speed with podcasting and how you can find your listeners even before you start a podcast.
Yes. So
we're here for you. We're guinea pigs.
Taught by us.
Yeah, taught by us.
Taught by
it's
us.
Really good.
Because we're podcast coaches and podcast producers.
Yes.
And that's what we do. That's our bread and butter.
That's our bread and butter. And
we need bread and butter.
Oh, we do. We need to get some bread and butter. We actually do need bread and butter. And the good kind of butter.
Yeah.
So maybe some sourdough?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'm hungry. We haven't had lunch
I don't think
today,
the
by the
listeners
way.
have ever heard your hungry sound. Or you're like, ooh, that sounds good.
Ooh, that sounds good.
It's like this snake almost. It's just such a hungry beast. But
I'm constantly hungry, yeah.
Yeah, so we are here for you. Everything we do is for you guys. We legitimately want to see your podcast grow. So we're your guinea pigs. If you have any ideas, anything you'd like to see us do, we're your clowns.
Hey, Veronica and Steve, could you record a podcast at wherever?
Yeah,
just tell
at
us.
a wedding or whatever it is.
Wedding.
Yeah. Can you go crash a wedding and make a podcast? I don't know. Maybe nothing illegal, obviously. But, if you have any ideas. And also, we know that there are a lot of you tuning in every week, and we haven't made a connection with you. We don't know that you listen to our podcast. That would mean the world to us to come find us on social media and let us know that you're listening to our podcast. Let us know what we can help you with. Tell us what your podcast is all about, and we'll give it some love and reshare that on our social platforms as well too. So
yeah, we will.
Come be part of our community, and until
don't be a
next time,
stranger.
we'll
Don't be a
talk to you
stranger
guys.
at the grocery store.
Yeah. The other thing we could do is just go ask people at the grocery store if we could have a minute.
Oh boy.
Oh.
You're,
but I don't know if I'm
you're
brave
going
enough for
crazy.
that.
You're
I
not
know.
ready yet.
In my younger years, I did stuff like that all the time, I don't know about this anymore. Maybe we could, because I don't know how to spin it around podcasting, but we could ask them like what their favorite produce is, or I don't know.
Well, we
Miko.
can ask them what their favorite podcast is, and if
Or
they
if they
know
listen to
about
podcasts.
podcasting.
Anyway, we went off track.
I don't know. We love you.
Love you guys, and until next time, stay
Happy
positive.
casting.
Happy casting.
We've had enough of this nonsense.
And there you have it, Podski. What did you think of this episode? Slide into our DMs and let us know.
We make this show for you, and we'll love to learn your feedback. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Pod Sound School. Make sure you share a screenshot of this episode and tag us so we can give you some love on the Instas.
Yeah, and if you're interested in our feedback, we do pod audits most Thursdays live in our Facebook community, Podcasting for Bosses. These are 30-minute coaching sessions where we dissect your podcast, your social media, and your content. You'll find the sign-up sheet inside the group, podsoundschool.com/community.
And until next time,
Happy casting,
amigos!